good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the second half of Barony Co-op Midweek Madness with me, Cornish-Knight, and my associates, Defuax and Wizard Fish. Now, unfortunately in the last episode, as the audio can attest to, I slightly ran out of time, so that's why it cut off. I won't be doing that again this time. As always, as I've been saying throughout this playthrough, this lag, as you can tell by the slowing down effect that you can see on everything falling and people moving, is quite extreme. I'm not going to go into it because it's not enjoyable for anyone here, and so we shall focus on other things. Now, over this particular run of this game, I have noticed an interesting characteristic, which is that the larger your party, the more penalties you suffer from having stuff like hunger on. Now, you can probably ask how hunger has an impact on a game with more people in it, and I shall tell you why. Sorry, I drink my water. The reason being is thus: your party with hunger on will probably go through about 50% or 100% more food than you normally would if you just had two people. The reason for this being is quite simple. Though you have more people in your party, the amount of items dropped per level does not increase, or not to my knowledge anyway. And as a result, the longer that you spend hanging around on levels with larger parties, the more at a disadvantage you will be when proceeding deeper into the dungeon. You can see this later on in this particular playthrough that we are undertaking when we get down to what we basically call like the catacomb levels, which are areas where food drops become quite scarce, and as a result, everyone in the party dies multiple times to hunger. Now, I have no problem with the food mechanic, I have no problem with the hunger mechanic. I think they are both very useful. But the problem is that because the food drops do not increase with the amount of people in your party, and it's almost guaranteed that a good percentage of the food dropped will be cursed, so you can't use it, hunger becomes actually more dangerous to the people involved in the game than the monsters do, which I think is a rather unfortunate element. I normally really love the stuff in Barony. It has loads of wonderful mechanics. I love the fact that if your game crashes you can load from the floor that you're on. I love the fact that you can have this random boss monster turning up in the form of the minotaur and all that. I have no problems with that. What I have issue with is the fact that because the item drops are not increased with player numbers, it can become very challenging to actually manage hunger, which I love. I love the hunger mechanic. I think it's a very good way of balancing time usage in the game and the time mechanic between full exploration versus dying of starvation. Unfortunately, it does not really work when you seem to get parties that are larger than two people. I mean, granted, we had relatively poor food drops in this game with the three of us, and yes, a large amount of the food we found was cursed, but even so, it would have been nice not to have to be so concerned about hunger, especially at the lower levels where you want to be focusing on getting ready to fight the boss, or if you want to go and do the Minotaur's Labyrinth bosses. It was unnecessarily distracting in some regards, I think. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the hunger mechanic, as I have said, but it shouldn't be the thing that kills you the most in the game. I mean, we had like multiple deaths per player from hunger and nothing else. Now, if that was from enemy combat, then yes, that would be fine, but the fact is that you starving to death, one person starving to death each level because we don't have enough food or food hasn't spawned, is a rather frustrating mechanic. I mean, like here, for example, you pick up bread, and there's like I think there's a 1 in 3 chance right off the bat of it being not useful, because mouldy food in this game, no matter what, tends to give you food poisoning. And then out of that 2/3, there's I don't know the percentage chance for getting cursed items, but there's, if we say a 50-50 chance of it being cursed or not, then that cuts down the usable food that you can find to about 1 in 3, which doesn't sound so bad, and if it was 1 to 2 people then yes, it wouldn't be. But having only 1/3 the amount of food in the game that you can use for everyone is really limiting. I mean, if you were going to do it, I'd hate to see what it would be like if you had a 4-party doing this, because it would mean that you'd have to literally have massive amounts of food stored and nothing else, and of course that turns into the weight mechanic as well, because the more stuff you carry, the slower you move. That was, I believe, Wizard Fist hitting a teleportation trap and zipping away just back there if you wondered what happened. Either that or he went invisible, I'm not totally sure. I'm pretty sure he teleported. You can stumble across them items and traps that teleport you to strange places. That happens to me later on in the game. I mean, you have to be so careful. Like here, for example, like that piece of meat would have been really useful, but it's cursed. So we quickly run into the situation where you get to a point in the game where food just does not spawn, and it's like, well, we have no food stored, we've burnt all the food we had been keeping, because obviously people need to eat, and because half the food in this game does not get rid of hunger straight away, like cheese and apples don't actually fill up your hunger gauge. If you're hungry like this for a while, it takes like 4 pieces of food to actually fill up your hunger gauge. So it's pretty frustrating in some regards. I'd wish they'd tweak it so that if you had, for example, a spell that gets rid of ailments, the negative, I suppose we could call it negative perk or negative persistent perk spell. I would really like it because it's shaped like an apple. I would really like it if they made it so if you had the spell, you could basically cure hunger for a short amount of time. Not for a long time, not completely fill up your hunger bar, because that would be overpowered and get rid of the need for food, but at least get rid of the hunger thing, the hunger penalty, because you lose health. When you're starving, you lose health. And it would be useful if you had the spell if you did it and it just sort of turned stuff off. You can see here with the change in layout, we are now proceeding into the catacombs, and this is where things get a bit unpleasant, unfortunately. Not only are we suffering from hunger, but also the lag really starts to kick in. You'll see what I mean in a second. We're currently kicking down this treasure chest to get it open, hoping there's food inside. But like I said, I love this game. I really love Barony. I think it's a fantastic throwback to traditional D&D games. But I do think that they need to make the hunger mechanic more balanced for larger parties. At least make it so that more food spawns. Just overall more food. Yes, some of it may be cursed and some of it may be mouldy, but at the same time, just having more food spawning would be really useful, because I don't think your drops are directly linked to how many people you have in your party. Take this cheese for example. I eat this cheese and it doesn't get rid of my hunger bar, because obviously I've been hungry for a while, so I'm in negative percentages by this point. But I sort of stop complaining about the hunger mechanic right now, because we should really focus on the game. Now, basically by this point in the game you can see we're starting to suffer from lag a bit. You will notice it in a moment when I start moving around a bit more. It's just like this, it's like moving underwater, everything is really slow. I don't know if it's on this floor or if it's on the next one. Yeah, here you can see how that ring slowly bounces, the lag starts to kick in, and everybody starts to move slowly. I recorded all of it, but it's not that enjoyable to watch, so we basically skip out to the puzzle bonus level, which unfortunately, in the meantime, both myself and the Fuax die from hunger, because obviously no food. I mean, in my case it was rather annoying because Wizard Fist was standing right next to me and I'd asked for food and he just hadn't noticed and I starved, which was really frustrating, but you can't help it. that would be something else which would be really good to have entered into the game. If you could have like team channel speak or something, or just a way to communicate via headset in game for people, that would be really cool. Because at the moment you can only use software like TeamSpeak or other team-based chat engines to use. Either that or you type, which isn't fantastic. I think Wizardfish was a bit surprised when he went into the puzzle room because the glitch, well not the glitching, but this is how the boulders sort of are at the moment, and I don't think he was expecting him to be like that, so it sort of threw him off a bit. Me and the Fuax were completely used to it by now, and the Fuax comments about how he was expecting someone to get crushed, because that's what happened the last time that the two of us went into this room. He crushed me with a boulder. But Wizardfish basically decides that it's probably not worth hanging around here, and to be honest, I have to agree with him, because the reward you get for completing this is pretty much just money, and by this point in the game it's not that useful. I mean, you can get shops, but it's the only shops you really want to sort of have down here by this point are general stores or food shops. The other ones are, I won't say pointless, because none of the shops in Barony are pointless, but hopefully, or normally by this point, you've normally got good enough equipment that you don't need a lot of the stuff. Unfortunately for the three of us, that hadn't quite turned out as you can see. I mean, the Fuax is basically running around, both the Fuax, myself, and Wizardfish are running around without any armour on. It's not a fantastic situation. We're back, we're still in the catacombs. I don't think no, we're not in the, yeah, we're in one of the maze sections. So basically, I think we were discussing, it was either here or on the next floor, we were basically discussing about two things. One of obviously was food, and the other one was if we wanted to go and fight the Minotaur or not. And that's what pretty much dominates the entire conversation for the later half of the game between us, is literally how do we manage the food situation, because none of the enemies are dropping food or not dropping enough food. You do get the occasional like food drop, but nowhere near the amount that you normally get in higher levels. So it's like we were literally searching every scroll to try and find food scrolls. We're trying to kill every enemy to try and see if they drop food. I think quite quickly we sort of decide that decide just to go for the Minotaur fight, which is in the room surrounded by lava. Unfortunately, to do that fight you need to get a pickaxe or something and basically hack your way inside it, which isn't too bad, but I didn't have one at the time. I believe one of the other guys did. But I'm not a massive fan of the catacombs. The catacombs are a massive maze, so unless you have map reading or you're very quick, it can become quite a nightmare. I mean, you can see the lag kicking in again with people running about. I should quickly comment that if you're light sensitive or have problems with epilepsy-induced seizures due to flashing lights, please take precautions. There will be flashing lights in the episode. I should have probably mentioned that sooner, but I do apologise. But yeah, it's just I'm not a fan of this level. I know it's supposed to be one of the more interesting ones, but mazes were never something I particularly found enjoyable to be lost in. Just because obviously, especially with an 8-bit game like this, they all look the same, all the maze looks the same, so there's no like real features to sort of keep you focused on. So you end up using your map, because your map is a lot easier to navigate, and I think around this time you sort of decide to go and just sort of do the Minotaur boss. I think at this point, maybe slightly later. And there's the Fuax complaining about food again. It's just something that happened in this game. I think if we were going to do it again, we might just turn hunger off if there were going to be three of us, because it stopped being a challenge and just became frustrating. I don't know about you guys, but if you want to leave a comment section what you think about the hunger mechanic. Personally, I like it, but as you can see, like, the Fuax, he eats something that's got food poisoning, and it makes his situation so much worse. I mean, I wish the developers would basically just add more food. If you have more people, add more food, but it's just how it is, pardon me. Yeah, flashing lights. That's the other thing that was being affected by the lag really badly, was the light orbs, because they were sort of glitching due to the connection issues we were having. It meant that they were sort of going backwards and forwards on their own between places, and just causing some really weird effects. By this point, the Fuax, I believe, is just about to die, so he pretty much tells me to pick up his stuff, and then he like drops dead. Yeah, here we go. Basically, Wizard Fist basically says that he wants to go and fight the Minotaur, and we all agree. The Fuax basically passes away from hunger again. We sort of lost count of the amount of people, how we died like that, and it's annoying for everyone, because not only is it frustrating for the person who's playing, because then he has to sort of sit around watching for a while, which is never fun in a game like Barony. But also that his partners don't have to lug a lot of his gear, and we have our own stuff to carry, and it takes space, and it's just not that pleasant. Now, this is the Minotaur level. I'd never been to the Minotaur level before. I make a habit of avoiding the Minotaur if I can, but for all intents and purposes, it's basically a massive maze with one side being dominated by a huge corridor. Now, neither myself or the Fuax at this point really had the gumption to take on the Minotaur. I definitely didn't. I mean, I've got no armour, no real equipment, and we're facing off against an elite version of a monster that can kill most people in one hit. And so all we can really do now is sort of flee, and as you can see, what the Fuax and myself do is that we literally sort of flee into the maze as Wizard Fish, what we'd probably call kites him around the large area. It's one of the few ways that you can easily deal with the Minotaur, is that because he has no range attacks, you can quite easily kill him if you have strong enough magic. That's how the particular NPC is called the Zap Squad deal, when they have magical laser stars and they literally electrocute him to death. But I noticed that the magic in this game is much more powerful than the melee. I know you could say, oh, the melee is quite powerful, you were killing everyone in one hit. So yes, but the two main bosses that you face in this game, which is the elite Minotaur and the Baron. The Baron himself is a bit of a contradiction, because though he's actually really weak in melee, his magical attacks are insanely powerful, so actually managing to get to him to hit him is actually nigh on impossible. Plus, magic reflection isn't that effective, depending. I mean, in my experience, it's not that effective. He one-shotted me, because basically it's a percentage chance for every time a spell hits you, I believe. And the Baron can cast like 6 spells at once, so you have to basically roll that dice 6 times and get that percentage 6 times, because his magic is obscenely high, and like his powers are obscenely powerful. Around this time, basically, me and the Fuax basically are trying to stay out of the way. I mean, he gives me this really cool spear. One thing I will say about this is that we had incredible luck with rare drops. We had a level where we had like 6 or 7 of these talking maces, which is what the Fuax is using, which are legendary items. I've got Excalibur and I've got Odin's spear. I can't remember the name of it, but that's a rare drop item as well. It just was a very lucky run in some regards. We had a lot of very rare equipment. It dropped. It would have been better with more food, but that's just how it is. There you have Wizard Fist coming back, and we just sort of heading to the next floor. I really had a lot of fun playing with these guys. They were really good. It would have been better without the lag, but it couldn't be helped. And we went down into the next area, which is what you'd basically call like the castle, or I suppose you could call them like the crypt area or the castle. I believe it's called the castle area. It's basically the final dungeon area where the Baron is. As you can see, Wizard Fist dying of hunger, we pick up some of his gear. The problem is that every time you die, you can't always pick up everything that the person is carrying, because you've obviously picked up stuff, and it's just really bad. I mean, I'm starving again, almost dead. It's not great. I'm trying to make up my mind if I should stay in here and just dump stuff for my companions to pick up, or if I should just go straight for a treasure chest or something outside. I think I decide to try my luck with the treasure chest and just hope that there's food inside. Unfortunately there isn't. There's just, I believe it's like clothing or potions or something. And I see a fireball and turn around and there's a demon, and I die from hunger like 2 seconds later. It's not fun. I mean, also I sort of mentioned, I think I already did, that it turns out that Wizard Fist was playing a female avatar. He might have been playing a male avatar and got an amulet or equipment of transgenderization, which does turn up, which turns you into a woman. And like, we're on the next level. I decided to sort of skip it because we didn't really do much, just more looting. And again, as you can see in the text, as I told you earlier about the minotaur mechanic, you can get a minotaur every floor if you get the percentage chance right. I believe it's like around the percentage chance summons for him, and literally we got him on this floor, which wasn't particularly fantastic. None of us had that great equipment, and we were running low on everything. By this point I was literally sort of running around wearing a jester's hat, a shield and a halberd, and that was pretty much about it. I was trying to kill stuff to see if they had any food on it, and it was just... You could probably say we were scraping the bottom of the barrel by this point. A lot of our gear, we'd lost a lot of our gear and relying a lot on magic. So I was just sort of desperate to just find something to wear. I mean, I was putting stuff on without even identifying it, which in this game is normally a death sentence. You don't want to do it. But we had no choice. I mean, both the Thorax and myself were low on equipment. I'm pretty sure Wizard Fist was low on equipment by this point. We knew a Minotaur was coming. I was rather terrified by the prospect and just wanted to leave. But I think Wizard Fist wanted to try and loot the area a bit to try and get some equipment to face the Baron with. And as you can see, I'm out of magic. I hadn't found any items and stuff which meant my magic regened faster, so I was relying on base magic. Wizard Fist was there sort of finishing off demons and everything, and you can just see sort of the lag kicking in with the sort of super speedy characters. It can become a bit worrisome, because especially when you're using high grade magic, the lag with the speed up is dangerous, because you can fire a fireball and your partner walks straight into it because he's moving faster on your screen than he is on his. So it's not great. And see, look, we get food and it turns out to be moldy fish, and it's like, how does that help me at all? And to top it all off, as you can then see, the Minotaur turns up, so I'm desperately wanting to flee the level. And all we had to do was just sort of get out of it, but apparently the guys wanted to sort of stay and fight it. And for some bizarre reason I couldn't quite figure out at this point, the Minotaur ignores me and goes for them. I'm desperately trying to activate it with them nearby, hoping to suck us all through onto the next level, but it's not going to happen. And so you have... I think it's Thorax. Thorax is trying to basically bait the Minotaur after him. I get food poisoning from eating something, and now I'm even more faint and dying, so that's not fantastic. But yeah, I mean, the kiting mechanic in this game works extremely well, especially for the bosses. They don't tend to have area of effect attacks, so as long as you sort of kite around in a relative circle formation, you can bait them away from you. the lag was then causing me problems with my fireballs, because obviously I was casting them and then he was skipping around the place, which meant the fireballs either went out slowly or missed him completely, which was really annoying. So it's just one of these things. I mean, even with all the problems we were facing, I was still enjoying the game. We all were. I hadn't played 3-player co-op in Barony before, so it was pretty enjoyable. I don't know how you were finding it, but I really quite liked it. I do think though that it needs to have some improvements done to it. It needs to have some balancing issues. I don't know if they want to add more enemies or just add more stuff per player that joins a co-op game, but as you can see, the lag there is sort of playing about with the light sources again, but it just didn't feel right having 3 people in the game. It felt odd. Not that it was odd play-wise, it was odd like equipment-wise. You weren't getting as much stuff as you normally, or you were getting as much stuff as you normally would get for 1 or 2 people, but because there were 3, obviously it meant that you had to share a lot of stuff out, which meant that people ended up with like hardly anything sometimes, though we were getting really weird stuff like 7 of these really super rare talking maces, and it's just very odd. As you can just see back there, the minotaur, literally he just walks through stuff, he literally just demolishes walls. It's one of the mechanics that makes him so dangerous. It's not like you can't actually run away from the minotaur, not easily. He just smashes through terrain, so you have to sort of kite him around open areas. And by this point I'm out of mana, I'm out of food, and we just sort of decide to skip straight to the next level. I basically tell them that I'm dead, and I wish them the best of luck, and that's pretty much how my story ends on this particular floor. I literally just say good luck and pop, I explode, spreading my juicy rewards all over the place like a gory pinata. But yeah, to be honest, everyone dies so much in this particular playthrough that I've been skipping all the bits where I'm not in it, just because it happens so often. It's not that enjoyable to watch by this point. So we pretty much skip straight down to, I think it's the boss fight. It should be the boss fight coming up. Yeah, it is. I accidentally shoot Wizard Fist with a magical spell while trying to cast light, which doesn't help our situation. Unfortunately, I'm afraid to say that you won't get to see much of the boss fight. The Fuax crashes his game. I don't know what happens, it crashes, and the problem with the host player crashing is the fact is that it runs the risk of deleting the other player's avatars, which is what happened to me. My character got deleted, and so we couldn't continue from this point onwards. So you see about half the fight with the Baron. This is interesting. I pick up this magical mirror and they tell me it's like a reflection mirror, so I'm really interested. I activate it and it turns into a teleportation mirror, in fact, and basically sends me off towards a group of gnomes. I flee from the gnomes and walk straight into a demon and die. So that's not great. It's really interesting. I don't know why it happens, but when you load into areas you get green texture bubbles popping up. I don't know if it's like an item placement symbol for the game mechanics or something, but with NPCs and stuff like the gnomes, you can actually walk into an area and they'll have like green balls on them. I hate the gnomes. In this game the gnomes are the worst. They carry some really powerful items and they can kick you all about the level. If you ever face them in groups, just sort of flee for it, or at least have other people fighting them. So yeah, you can see the lag sort of really cutting in. Like, it's a bit sort of wonky by this point. So I didn't tend to keep much of the footage from this. I just sort of tried to keep it so you could just get straight to the boss fight. The Baron, as I say, is absolutely overpowered. He's like Dark Souls level of overpowered boss fight. He's really, really strong. If any of you have ever fought him, you know what I'm talking about. But unfortunately, as I say, the Fuax crashes, so though we do get a good percentage of the boss fight, we don't get as much as I would have liked, to be honest. I would have liked to have killed him, but some things just aren't meant to be. I think the Fuax was invisible at this point, which is useful in some regards, a bit annoying for his companions because it makes firing magic more risky. But I'm not going to be talking for much longer because my voice is starting to give out, so if you have liked, please press the like button. If you wish to subscribe, please press the subscription button. I hope you have liked this episode of Barony Co-op. I have enjoyed showing it to you and enjoyed playing it. There will be more next week. Until next time, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter at the links provided below. Have a good day.